One downside of the Lumix S1H is the battery time. If you use the internal battery, well, by the way, it cost €100, one battery, that doesn't last so long because of the high quality codec. Because you can capture with this camera 400 Mbits per second. The all-intra codec is a very potent codec when it comes to editing. It runs all-intra in every software very, very smooth. It takes a lot of data rates, 400 Mbits per second, and it takes a huge hit on the battery. Battery doesn't last so long, but in every other aspect is this camera superb. And why you should consider this camera even in 2024, that's the video topic today. One reason this camera is still in 2024 ultra superb is just the image quality. Image quality is not just how many pixels divided by how many frames per second you can film. It's also a topic of highlight roll-off, how the image looks, the image sharpness. Is it too sharp? Has it a softness but it's still sharp? That depends also highly on the lenses. If you want to work with a camera, if you want to make money with a camera, then I would suggest provide your customer with pictures that has superb image quality. For instance, when you have this camera, you can shoot clothing and fashion very well. If you have, for instance, the Lumix S5 Mark X, you have oftentimes mentioned in people, you have the moire effect, and that destroys your image. You have this in video and in pictures, especially when you want to nail fashion photography with f8 or something and the image is very sharp. You see these weird lines, moire effect, that destroys your images and especially your pictures. You can fix it a little bit in the photo software Lightroom, for instance, but you cannot fix it in video, and that can be a huge problem. Also has this camera, the sensor works a little bit different. It has a different highlight roll-off. The image is not so ultra sharp that it looks digital. It's just the right amount of sharpness that the skin looks nice and every aspect of the image looks just a little bit better. And the software, like I said, is amazing in this camera. It runs and runs and runs for ages. My settings, my videography settings, you know, when I work for clients, I have clients, I work for them. For instance, tomorrow I have to work for a client, for the Prince of Cameroon. Again, by the way, I have a video about this topic online, but I use 99% the all-intra codec, 4K, 25 frames per second and 400 Mbits per second. When I shoot outside and I have a lot of time, I use Vlog because I can then control the image via this monitor and I can then capture the most dynamic range of the camera and the best looking image. But when I use like slow motion or something, I don't use Vlog because the conversion from Lumix, from Vlog to Rec 709, you need a lot of data for it. And in my opinion, this camera doesn't provide enough data in the 420 like long GOP codecs. You need then 400 Mbits per second to convert the image quality in like the best looking image. And I use then mostly the image stabilization just in version 1, not the digital and not the boost image stabilization, because when you move the camera a lot, the image can look terrible when you move the camera. When you work like run and gun videography, you want just the mechanical image stabilization. A camera with full-size HDMI, air cooling system, a software that never fails, because I read a lot of Reddit and in the Lumix forum, people complain often that the Lumix S5X and the Lumix S5 II have some software issues. A lot of times, as I mentioned, the camera freezes and the camera makes stuff, and I want a camera that works. You know, when I film for a client, I have an important shoot, I want my camera to work every time 100%. And I had never ever in my career a freeze in this camera or a situation where this camera failed me. And that's one of the reasons why this camera is amazing. And the image quality. Welcome to Africa, by the way. We are in the Tierpark in Berlin and we looking at some wild animals, and yeah, some people climb over the fences here.
Und beim Zurücklaufen schön auf die Fresse fallen.
Genau. And
Oh, kick mal.
one reason again why I choose this camera, it provides you with the MOV codec. And for instance, you have the situation where you film something and the battery dies, and then you have basically a corrupted file if you film in MP4. Then you cannot play the file back. That can destroy your recording. When you have an MOV file and the camera stops recording, that file is still playable because it doesn't need a begin and an endpoint. So if you want to film fail-safe, then film in MOV. Also, MOV is way faster in rendering times as MP4. MP4 takes a while till you can basically render it. It takes longer, and MOV is for editing, MP4 is for playback. If you film in MP4, it plays back on a phone, on every computer, and it looks nice, even in 10-bit. MOV, not so easy. You cannot play it back on every PC. Also with these files, it takes a lot of processing power to play MOV 4K 10-bit files back, and also the 6K takes a very huge hit on your PC if you want to play it back. Another reason to choose this camera is for me also the menu. That's amazing, that's superb, that's very easy. I have my Q menu so set up that I can change the most important settings on the go. The image stabilization is amazing. If you film run and gun stuff, when you are a videographer, you have a lot oftentimes run and gun stuff. The client moves a lot and you have to keep the client in the frame, and you have to walk behind the client, and the cameraman has to walk then a lot. The image stabilization is still very good. Even when the camera moves, the image just looks good. Sony cannot provide you with such an amazing image stabilization, and often, especially when you film with a long lens, someone is behind certain people on a stage and he speaks something and you have to capture a speech or something, a speaker. Image stabilization saves your day, my friend. That's crazy. Another reason for me to choose a Lumix camera always is the 180 degrees shutter rule. You can set in this camera that regardless of the frame rate, if you're on 25 frames, 24, 50, 60, 100, whatever, 180 frames per second, you can choose the 180 degrees shutter speed rule, and that's amazing. Often have cameras not this feature built in because you change the frame rate because you want to film B-roll 25. You want to film something 25 FPS, then you want to film B-roll in 60 FPS, and then you always have to change two settings, the frame rate and the shutter speed, to provide your clients with amazing looking footage. Like I said, the 180 degrees shutter rule is basically you have 25 FPS and a shutter speed of 1/50. That's crucial. And you don't have to change the shutter speed in this camera because it is fixed on 180 degrees angle, and that's, in my opinion, a very handy feature, a must-have in a camera. By the way, how is business running? My new purchased cameraman, Stefan, is holding my Lumix S5, by the way. And how's business running? We had last month a client from Texas. Greeting to CJ from Texas. It was nice to work with you. And we had to film some buildings and assets. They say Immobilien, assets, buildings especially, and that was very nice. I can make a separate video how to film real estate clients, by the way. And I filmed it also with the Lumix S1H and the Lumix S5 because of the nice image stabilization. Then when you walk and film, image stabilization looks just nice. The client doesn't have to make an extra step in basically balance out the footage and stabilize it. That saves your client time, and time is money. That's very, very important. One more reason the Lumix S1H and the Lumix S5 is amazing because of the weather sealing. This camera has an amazing weather sealing. I was with the Lumix S5, for instance, in Iceland in -10 degrees, and I was with the Lumix S5 in very hot areas where it's at like +40 degrees. And also I had my Lumix S1H in the even more difficult situation where is it super hot. And the camera had to record 7 hours a DJ set in a very hot club. It was like 40 degrees Celsius. That's like, I don't know, what, 800 Fahrenheit or something. And the camera had to record a 7-hour DJ set straight in 4K all the time. I know a lot of cameras that cannot provide this. especially not the new Lumix S9 camera. It's also a full frame camera. I mean, that's not made for work. When you want to make money with the camera, get the Lumix S1H. The Lumix S9 is for hobby and for playing around and vloggers and your hobby basically. Money, you make money with this camera. And the camera kept recording and recording and recording. It barely uses the fan inside because the camera has such a nice heat management that you don't even have to use the fan often, and you can even set the fan to automatic and fan on. You can basically set the fan to manual. I want to now use the fan. One downside of the Lumix S1H is the weight. It's heavy, it's clunky, it's a huge camera. You will not bring this camera to your vacation, that's far too heavy for it. The Lumix S9, for instance, it's better for vacation. But if you want to make money, if you want to work with the camera, get a Lumix S1H. In my opinion, is this still a camera that is so amazing. And the last plus point, I can tell you, this camera provides you with an amazing image quality. And I said here the last time, image quality is not just pixel divided by frames. It is an amazing camera. The codec is amazing, the all-intra codec. It just looks amazing. Thank you for watching. My name is Paul. I'm from Berlin, Germany. I work full-time with my camera. See you in the next video. Sehr schön.